Everything, it seems today, when we get out online and on social media, starts to take a life of its own. And what starts out as this either concept or idea starts to become almost like, to me, it feels like this gigantic amoeba of just, extrapolation, misinformation. So I want to dig into, now several years and years later, what's your thought process around fasting, and what are you seeing? Because obviously you have a gigantic community of individuals fasting.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's such a great kind of springboard to this conversation, this larger conversation. Yes, I still believe in the therapeutic value of this strategy. One of many strategies that we can utilize as women as we're navigating perimenopause and beyond. Unfortunately, it has now become heavily commercialized and I understand that is the way things evolve. But I think for a lot of individuals, they've taken it to an extreme. And by that I mean they've gone from probably overeating to eating less to now eating not a lot of food. And the concerns that I have center around the lack of protein intake for a lot of individuals that are doing OMAD habitually and chronically.
Mhm.
My question is, how do you get enough protein into one meal? If you're able to do that, first of all, that's amazing. But most of my female patients cannot get 100 grams of protein into a meal. So then you go from overnourishing to undernourishing. So that's one kind of key concept. But when women find that intermittent fasting doesn't fix whatever they're doing it for, whether it's weight loss resistance or inflammation, they think that if a little bit of fasting is good, the mindset is more is better. So more fasting, less food, over exercising. And so I start to see this emerging triad or compilation of traits that can contribute to a lot of the sequelae that you and I both speak to.
Mhm.
People that have got significant cortisol dysregulation, people that have, really negatively impacted their gut microbiome, people that have lost muscle at the expense of trying to lose weight. And so I think that, like with any strategy, there's a time and there's a season and a reason. And so at this point in my life, do I fast? Yes, but a lot less. I think that for each one of us, it's inviting that conversation of, is this strategy still working for me? I think so I think there's two definitive issues here. Am I saying, or are we saying that calories don't matter? Absolutely not. Calories do matter, but it is one of many things that can impact your ability or inability to lose weight. And so I think it speaks to a bigger challenge of saying, I think it's important to have a sense of what your protein intake is. I think if you are trying to lose weight, there are women that really do well with some degree of carbohydrate cycling and, more carbohydrates on the day you are lifting heavy weights and more active, less carbohydrate on the days that you are not as active. That doesn't mean none. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you have to be a strict ketogenic diet, which is, if you really look at what ketogenic diets are designed to be, it's really like 20 to 30 grams total carbohydrate,
Yeah.
not net. So I think that it really begs the conversation around when I see well-meaning 30-year-old gym bros or gentlemen. I mean, I respect you. You've got a PhD. They've worked hard for that, but they're so narrow-mindedly focused and saying it's just all about the calories. Well, that's great. You can say that to a 20 or a 30-year-old. You
Yeah.
can't say that to a 40, 50, 60-year-old. And you're right. When you look at the research on body composition changes that occur as we are navigating this menopausal transition, it is no joke. Like, I
Yeah.
have a functional med doc who probably twice a year, I get on the bioimpedance scale. And, I looked at the numbers of what my body fat percentage was, and I was like, I'm doing nothing different.
Right.
And yet my body fat percentage has gone up, my lean muscle has gone down. It is time to course correct. And so I think that when we talk about weight, what we really need to talk about is body composition, and by that, I mean fat-free mass to muscle mass, because that is what we want to leverage, not, "I'm 127 pounds because I have more muscle on my body, but my clothes fit more comfortably," but, "Oh, I wanna be 115 because that's what I weighed when I went off to college." Like,
Yeah.
it's that little bit of a mind screw where women are still so fixated on that number that they can't get beyond the fact what we're telling you is we want you to build muscle.
Yeah.
By building muscle, you will lose body fat. That will shift body composition. And I have a friend of mine who's a personal trainer, and she said, I don't know what it is about the number 120 pounds.
Mhm. So
120 pounds is what every woman aspires to be. 120 pounds. She's like, I hear from clients, I haven't been 120 pounds since I was 20 years old. And she's like, I've got a 56-year-old woman. And she's like, what is it about 120? She's like, I don't know.
yeah.
But it's like the magic number. If I could be 120 pounds, that would fix everything.
Yeah, I think it is truly like that transition high school to college age. Everybody's like, "That's when I was in my prime. That's the number." I'm like, "You were also not at sexual maturation either." So
Right.
let's get clear that even your hormones weren't actually at full capacity at that point. Yeah, and I do think it's very very interesting because the other side that never gets talked about is, we have our body composition, our body fat, but truly if you look at longevity numbers, whether it's mortality or other things, even a woman, I like to call it, with a little extra junk in the trunk, right? Statistically, even if you're on the slightly higher side of that healthy BMI range, there is no advantage to being on the lower side. It's actually a disadvantage to be walking around at 17, 18% body fat when we get older. Now, is that because they're under lean and also skinny? We don't know, but actually having a little extra junk in the trunk, ladies, means that our longevity is a little bit better. So, if you're wearing an 8 and you think you need to be a 4, that 4 isn't going to actually improve your health in any way, shape, or form at all, period, full stop.